the Atlanta Falcons, who also they made a splash in the first round.
They did.
So they get gifted Jalen Walker. I feel like they did not expect him to be on the board then. And with the guy they were debating him with at pick 15, they decided to trade back into the first round at pick 26, moving up with the Rams to take Tennessee's edge rusher, James Pierce Jr. So they double up at edge in the first round, giving up a future first as well to go get James Pierce Jr.
So, as we've been kind of debating through the whole offseason, listen, we don't love this process as far as trading up for a non quarterback. Just generally speaking, that's poor process because you're usually not going to be able to get the value out of that player for what you give up. And they gave up a lot. They gave up a first round pick next year. So they basically said James Pierce Jr. is worth their second round pick from the 2025 draft and their first round pick next year to trade up to get him. But I will say, and I might be a little biased. We are Tennessee fans. So we know a lot about Jalen Walker and James Pierce. Pairing both these guys on the defensive line together in Raheem Morris's scheme is fascinating, dude. That is a fascinating look because what was their biggest need come? Everyone, literally, go look at any mock draft, mocked them an edge rusher. They mocked them an edge rusher. And like you said, Dakota, I don't think they expected Jalen Walker to be on the board.
No.
So they were targeting James Pierce. That's who they were looking at drafting at 15. They end up getting Jalen Walker. Well, how do you fix your biggest need? Everyone agreed that this was the Falcons' biggest need. You double up with two guys who are talent-wise could be top 15 players in this draft, maybe even top 10 players in this draft if James Pierce didn't have the off-the-field questions. So, dude, that's intriguing, man, because in one offseason, in one draft, and one night of the draft, you could have turned the biggest weakness of your team into one of the bigger strengths of your team.
Yeah, and not a big fan of moving up for non-quarterbacks, but it is a fascinating combination. A team that has been consistently mocked to draft edge rushers for like the past 4 years, and they just kept punting on it. They did load up last year in late round picks on the defensive line, but not really investing in the position. And it definitely sounds like they were absolutely baffled that Jalen Walker was on the board at 15. And funnily enough, in our mock draft that we did, it was the same thing where he was there at 15, and I was like, from the Falcons, I sprint to the podium with his name.
Exactly.
And funnily enough, they didn't. Yeah, well, because they kind of debated James Pierce because they were like, surely he was Walker was gonna be gone. So yeah, we can say we don't love the process, but what they end up with is pretty damn good and fascinating because you now have two dudes who are very athletic. Jalen Walker's a little bit undersized for an edge rusher. He's only 6'1", but a little bit beefier at 243. James Pierce is tall and long at 6'5", 245. Ran the 4.47. Both of them are athletes, and they also have kind of different skill sets because Walker kind of wins a little bit more. He has the bend as well, but he wins with power quite a bit. James Pierce is kind of all about bending around the edge, and they are also both juniors. So that's another interesting part that's not talked about a ton. They're in a draft class that has a lot of guys that were kind of older. These are both young dudes that you are now getting both your edge rushers on rookie deals together alongside your rookie quarterback contract from last year to now have three of those positions at the same time locked up like that. And it's a fascinating process.
Quarterback's the most expensive position, but edge rusher right there with receivers, the second most. So you have two potentially elite edge rushers on rookie deals to be able to continue to build around your rookie quarterback. It is fascinating, dude. It's going to be interesting. And again, I'll reiterate one more time, you're doubling up. So now it's not that it's completely bust proof, but you're much more likely now to find an elite edge rusher out of this class because you took two of the top prospects at the same position. And plus, like you said, Jalen Walker has the versatility. So it's like, okay, if James Pierce is good at edge and Walker's just not working out as edge, well, then just move him to an off-ball linebacker. He did that as well, and he was good at that. So it's fascinating, dude. It's going to be. I'm just interested to see how it works out, how they use both the players.
Yeah.
In our lanes right now, dude, they're already both listed as the starters on the team, which is crazy because, like we've talked about throughout our draft shows, like Our Lanes typically doesn't list your rookies as starters. They actually also have another rookie as a starter as well. So I mean,
Hmm.
listen, it's a fascinating draft class, man. Again, don't think I would have done it just because I think
Yeah.
I mean next year's I mean the Falcons are not guaranteed to be good. Let's just be real. They're not guaranteed to be good. It's very dependent on Michael Penix, but that could also say the confidence that they have in their young quarterback because it's like, well, we
True.
think we're going to be picking, pretty high in the draft. Well, low in the draft, I guess if you will, but yeah, man, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and Walker's versatility will be fascinating to see what Raheem Morris does in his scheme with him because you can move him all over the place. He's going to find a home somewhere. And for a team that ranked 31st in pass rush win rate last year of 32 teams, they now get a guy in James Pierce Jr. who had one of the best pass rush win rates in all of college football, even better than Abdul Carter. Um, and alongside Jalen Walker, who's earned an 83 plus PFF pass rush grade the past 2 seasons. So that is impact that can make a difference immediately and change the outlook of your entire defense. And then the other aspect that you touched on too is with the James Pierce off the field stuff. I think
Yep.
I love this aspect as well, where the main issue wasn't it's just to clarify, it's not like the Mike Green stuff. Like there's no
No.
accusations, things like that. It's does he love ball, basically? Is he always going to put in the effort for watching tape and things like that? But Jalen Walker's considered to be the opposite. He's considered a high character guy and is in the room and whatnot. So pairing those two is almost a perfect marriage. Because if you just connect James Pierce to Jalen's hip and they grow together, then that could become a fascinating use case on a situation like this.
It really could, dude. That's why I mean I just think the whole situation as a whole is very interesting. We were also just to give a little backstory, we were also pretty pumped when James Pierce got picked. We saw the Falcons trading back up into the draft, and we're like, what could they possibly be coming back up for? And we're blown away when they doubled up at edge. So yeah, and you bring up a good point about the character stuff. Like if Jalen Walker can get James Pierce locked in, but I've also talked about how like pass rushers are one of the positions where I'm like, okay, does he have to love ball? Like if he can rush the passer, does it really matter? It's not a hard position, right, Dakota? It's like there's not a lot of assignment involved. It's like go get the quarterback. It's not that tough. He also improved as a run defender as well this past season.
True.
So but yeah, I mean, it's one of the more fascinating draft stories in my opinion to just see how this plays out, and it's also just another case study on hey, is it ever a good idea to trade up for a non-quarterback in the draft?
And a little bit more first person perspective too. Like, I mentioned this to you in our group a good bit, is that some of the stuff with James Pierce may have shown a little bit this past season because like there was multiple games. We rotated our defensive line a lot. Like we had a lot of depth there, but there were moments where it's like they're down or late in the game and he's not on the field, and it felt weird for our best player to not be there. So I don't know if that ties into any of that or not, but it's something that after hearing those reports kind of made me think, I wonder if that is tied to that at all. But to your point, they don't have to love it necessarily. And now that he's going to be getting paid millions of dollars, even more than whatever his NIL was, just motivate the guy to go out there and try to win a championship because now that can also help. So fascinated to see how that all plays out. They continue to build with, after trading out and missing out on their second pick in the third round, they get Xavier Watts, safety out of Notre Dame, a guy that a lot of people I think expected to go in the second round, and he drops all the way to the end of the third. And then they double up again, two edges, and then go two safeties with Billy Bowman Jr. out of Oklahoma in the fourth round.
Man, the Xavier Watts pick, I thought again, really good value. He's the other rookie that's slated to start according to Our Lands. And if you can get a starting safety at pick number 96, that's fantastic. He had an 89 PFF coverage grade a year ago. That's really elite. And he was a phenomenal player at Notre Dame. Less valuable position, but still, I would have expected him to go in the second round at the very least. I think that's where most people had him projected. So, thought it was good value, and always love when a team can pick up a starter, plug a starter in the third round, dude. That's just not typical, and when you can do it, it's really valuable. So, Again, love doubling up at safety with Billy Bowman as well. So yeah, I mean, one of those guys are going to be the starting safety before the season starts.
Yeah, I love the Watts pick to pair him alongside Jesse Bates that they signed in free agency a couple years ago. Yeah, a guy that again, even at one point was getting almost like first round hype, but he also just doesn't play as a valuable position. But him being available in third round is crazy good value. Fully expect him to start alongside Bates. And then they do double up. Then I think Bowman can be utilized in a little bit different ways. Can almost be like a sub linebacker at times at his size. Does have a little bit of a tackling issue, but something you can coach up and work on. So double at edge, double at safety, and then they wrap up. They only have 5 picks. They wrap up with Jack Nelson, developmental tackle out of Wisconsin. Um, decent athlete. Dude's big, 6'7", 314. Has an opportunity to kind of compete to be a developmental backup for their bookend tackles that they have in Jake Matthews and Caleb McGarry.
Yeah,
Jake's getting older.
Yeah, he is. He is getting up there, but he's still very reliable. But kind of like the Bucks, man, they don't have a lot of picks because of the Michael Penix trade, now this James Pierce trade. They are low on draft capital, which generally I don't like. But I think with the 5 picks they did have, they nailed it. They really did nail it. So, but again, it's really dependent. And you really have to look at it specifically on James Pierce development because that's the guy you traded up for, right? So that's now the guy that has the microscope looking down on him because if he doesn't work out in particular, even if Jalen Walker does work out, then people are going to say, hey, you shouldn't trade up for a non-quarterback, which people are probably right.
Yep. Yep. And then they also had a handful of UDFA signings that were interesting. Most notable by far, Nick Nash, Triple Crown winner in college football this past season, wide receiver out of San Jose State, goes undrafted.
Love it.
Signing him, could easily make the roster and compete for some playing time. Kobe Bryant, corner out of Kansas, another guy that 2 years ago was getting mocked a lot higher. Solid, getting him in the room. And then one other one worth mentioning is Joshua Gray, guard out of Oregon State, who's pretty solid. And after losing, their guards are kind of set up right now, but after losing Dahlman, maybe he could come in and try to compete at center, or just some depth there along the interior of that offensive line. So love to see that. All right, with that in mind, what is your favorite pick for the Falcons?
Favorite pick for the Falcons, man. As much as my bias wants to say James Pierce Jr., you know what? I will say James Pierce Jr. I hate the process. I really do. But I still think, despite the process and everything that went into it, James Pierce Jr. at 26 in this draft class is ridiculous. There was an argument that this was the second best pass rusher in the class behind Abdul Carter. A very legitimate argument as well. Because as far as production, there's no question about that. As far as college production is concerned, he was definitely one of the more productive edge rushers in this class. So, listen, don't love the process, but at 26, love the player. And I think James Pierce will make an impact at the next level.
I'm going to shout out Watts, but I'm going to go Jalen Walker. They didn't overthink it, and my mock nailed it, so I have to go with Jalen Walker. Mykal Williams went ahead of him, which was just crazy to me. And I don't think they expected him to be there. They didn't overthink it. They took the best player on the board. And honestly, the fact that they did end up taking James Pierce Jr. makes me almost like it even more because then it does give you the flexibility to do something different with him. Like you're not locked into him needing to be your edge one now. And that I think opens up the door a lot more to how you utilize him. So love the fit for Jalen Walker there. All right. What is the consensus? Renee Bugner's thing say?
They didn't love this one. They are ranked at 26 in the NFL.
Thor gave them a horrible grade.
Yeah, he did. Thor is definitely bringing down the grade with a D-. I believe that's Thor, or maybe a Z. But either way, he didn't love it. Oh no, is that an F? No, that's the Chargers. Anyways, chart's hard to read, it's far away. But 26 in the NFL. Listen, I think a lot of people are downgrading them because of the process of trading up for James Pierce, which is completely fair. But they came away with 3 really good players. They got 3 starters on defense in this draft, which was their weakness. Like their offense is actually in a really good spot, and without many holes, they really needed to focus on the defensive side of the ball, and they did that. And I also think some people downgrade for not drafting a lot, which is
Yeah.
kind of unfair in my opinion. But that's is what it is. They didn't draft a lot, so they got downgraded for it.
I think this one probably one of the most like apparent in terms of how different people are when it comes to grading. Whether they value more of the players you got, more of the process, because they probably had one of the widest ranges from an A minus all the way to a D minus. So it's obvious that the A minus guys are probably like, wow, they got really good players. I don't really care how they did it. D minus are probably like, you gave up a future first. I hate it. So fascinating draft overall. But I mean, all things considered, could completely revamp the Falcons defense, which has not been the best. Great for a minute now. So
Agreed.
that is the Falcons 2025 class.